Hello and welcome to Togetherness Media. I'm Anika, your host for this episode, and today we are going to talk about sacred sexuality and how to create space for intimate encounters that promote healthy communication, mutual pleasure, and deeper connection. Joining us in our conversation today is a very special guest, love and intimacy coach, Faery Rose. Hello, Faery, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I am delighted to be here today to discuss sacred sexuality and Tantra.
Yeah, so tell us more about yourself. What's your background?
So I am a longtime body worker and healthy lifestyle proponent. I have taught yoga for a number of years and also hula hooping. I'm a hoop dance instructor and performer. If you don't know what that is, it's a kind of circus art. And for many years, I've just been a very embodied person in this way and really found a lot of meaning in pursuing a healthy lifestyle and teaching about healthy living. And about 4 years ago, I had a partner who introduced me to tantric lovemaking, and it radically changed my life, really. And it also just radically changed the way that I approached lovemaking from then on forward. And it was such an enlightening experience, such an illuminating experience to have this kind of relation, this kind of connection in the bedroom, that I felt super, super called to share that with more people. And so right now I'm stepping into offering workshops, and especially online in this pandemic, we're taking our teaching online. So I'm excited to be teaching a 4-part workshop series in December, which we'll talk more about later, to share a lot of these amazing concepts that just bring more pleasure, more connection, more play into the bedroom.
That all sounds so wonderful. So for those of the viewers that don't know, what is tantric sex?
So I just want to make a quick note to say that Tantra, in its root, in its essence, really means method. When you go back to the scriptures, Tantra is really just a method towards an experience of union, towards enlightenment, if you will. So the Tantrikas of ages past had a multitude of ways that they achieved awakening, achieved enlightenment. There was a sect of the Tantra followers called the Kaula tradition, and they found these spaces of expanded awareness of union through sexual play, oftentimes group sexual play. And so maybe it was just so good that it ricocheted down through the ages, and many people don't know about the rest of the tantric scriptures and tradition, but many people do know about Tantra as it relates to lovemaking. So just want to make a note about that. So tantric sex is a type of lovemaking where you really take your time. There's no goal. A lot of, oil can be used to massage your partner, mutual partner massage, a long extended foreplay where you just meander and just drench your partner in these loving caresses. I call it the golden moment. It's just establishing a deep space of presence. So there's that quality of tantric sex. Also, tantric sex often involves eye gazing or breath work or these energy practices where you can very concretely feel your energy and your partner's energy meld and mingle and meet in this space between you, or travel between your two bodies. And it leads to a more expanded experience of pleasure. Also, tantric sex can a man can have many orgasms and not ejaculate, and a woman can have many orgasms. I used to think that I can only have one orgasm, and I was like, nope, I'm a one-hit wonder. That's all I get. And then my previous partner showed me, no, that's not the case. There's literally, the body has a limitless capacity for pleasure, and as you start to play with these practices, you start to uncover that capacity for pleasure.
Wow, there's so much to discover there in your own body and in another human. That sounds wonderful. So this is very different from maybe how people traditionally conceive of sex or encountering with a partner. You know, when you hear of like hookups and one night stands and this kind of like Tinder culture and stuff like that, can you articulate maybe what the difference is?
Yeah, so I've definitely had periods in my past where I engaged in pretty casual sex, and I always felt like it was extremely unsatisfactory or unsatisfying. You know, I didn't feel satisfied. I didn't get what I was looking for. And I think we just kind of live in that fast-paced culture where we want it, we get it, have it, and that can end up in the bedroom too, where we want to just fast-pace ourselves towards the end goal, I guess, the orgasm for both parties, ideally both parties, not always both parties. You know, I so encourage people to try their best to not go just charging towards that goal, you know, maybe make the goal presence itself, really truly arriving in presence with your partner. Like that's a pretty delicious goal.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So, and then in the past, I also really felt like I wasn't given the opportunity to express what I needed. And that's kind of a two-part problem. One, I didn't do the self-inquiry on my own to learn my body, to really, really map out my pleasure centers and understand what is it that just like really gets me going, or what is it that gets me to these higher states of pleasure. It wasn't until I had those experiences with my partner that I even understood that my body was capable of those spaces of pleasure. So after that relationship, I started doing more self-inquiry and starting to understand, oh my gosh, like these are the ways that I can really achieve more pleasure in my body. And now I can communicate that. Now that I know it, I can communicate it in the bedroom. So that was the first part of the problem. And the second part was I often had partners who weren't open to receiving feedback. You know, I felt like if I piped up and said, hey, I need this or whatever, they would feel like, oh, you're ruining the mood or stopping the momentum, you know. And so I personally right now am calling in partners who are just all ears, like super eager and ready to hear what is it that like just really gives you the most pleasure, or, you know, how can I modify what I'm doing to bring you more pleasure. You know, in the moment, open to feedback. That's like my favorite, really.
So for someone that may be starting out with this work and maybe they don't have that partner to come in and to show them the ropes and to introduce them, what maybe is the starting step for them in order to start incorporating these practices either alone, if that's possible? Maybe could you articulate that, and also maybe with a partner?
Yeah. So there's so much you can do all on your own to start exploring these spaces of expanded pleasure. So, you know, there's kind of two different schools of thought when it comes to for like a female and her self-pleasuring exploration. Some people really don't believe that vibrators are a good thing. They can desensitize the clitoris, but it might be that your body just requires that. So I would say if that is a useful tool for you, don't necessarily shy away from it. Another really great tool is the crystal dildos, like just like a obelisk, basically a smooth obelisk. With one of those tools, you can explore using another hand to offer the external stimulation. So I would just say, gosh, take yourself in on a date, you know, make yourself a nice meal, your favorite food, maybe buy yourself some flowers, have a really nice long bath where you light candles and use bath salts and massage your body with soap and just really love this incredible temple that you're in. And a note on massaging your body, both while you're in the bath and maybe later when you're laying down, there are some really beautiful energy lines that run through the body that you can slowly stimulate and stroke, and you'll immediately start to feel this tingling warmness move through your body. And it's just a really great way to slowly turn yourself on, rather than just like slapping that vibrator on and going right to it. Just take your time. You know, this is, again, we're talking about this tantric way of just meandering aimlessly, you know. So,
and this might be a really good thing right now for people who are quarantined or alone and maybe feeling a little bit uninspired in their lives, for them to incorporate these practices and just like love themselves and ravish themselves.
Exactly. Like, now's the best time you could ever ask for to really truly commit to loving yourself. You know, I do this practice of mirror gazing, where I look myself in the mirror and I literally tell myself, like, look at you, you're gorgeous, you're stunning, you know, and just these little teeny practices make it so much easier, I would say, to arrive in self-love expressions of self-love, such as self-pleasuring. So,
and in this way, I know we'll get to talking about maybe how to implement this with a partner, but in this way, it does seem like Tantra is more all-encompassing than just in the heat of the moment or in a sexual context, because gazing in a mirror and doing that kind of exercise is fundamentally good for your soul and for your self-esteem, and it is changing the way that you talk to yourself. So it seems almost like a lifestyle of sorts.
Yeah, I would say it's like a way of approaching every moment in your day. In the tantric perspective, you see yourself as one with the divine, one with this all unifying consciousness, and that divine consciousness, that divine energy is bliss, it's love, it's perfection. So when you look at yourself and you see your perfection, you're seeing that divine beauty that's shining out of everybody's eyes, in my strong opinion. That is a tantric practice, you know. So it really is the effects, or the philosophy of tantra can infiltrate in all areas of life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then to answer your question about with a partner, oh my gosh, so much. So one thing that I really love encouraging people to do is to do something that I call creating the tantric container. So what that means is that you're creating a time window, a space, and all of the sensuous elements of that space, and also even the intentionality before you begin your lovemaking session. That intention is also creating a type of energetic container. So to bring back us back to the time, I really encourage you to give yourself like a 5-hour window. You know, eat an early dinner, 6 o'clock, you know, 7 o'clock, maybe by 7 o'clock you're in bed, and before you get to bed, it's really nice to shower with your partner or take a bath with your partner, and like lovingly soap each other up and caress each other with the soap. And also that's your time to make sure that every end of you is squeaky clean, you know, maybe brush your teeth, or you just don't want there to be a moment where you're like, oh no, I didn't, you know, wash the bottoms of my feet or something, you know. It's like every end of you, make sure you're all clean and shaven if you want to shave. And then, you know, in the bedroom, it's so nice to have the lighting really low, you know, maybe candles, maybe little Christmas lights could be up. It's nice to have incense, if you like incense, something that smells really nice, or even flowers. And music, thinking about the music. I really love artists like Manish Damour, Maneesh space DE space MOOR. He's got a beautiful series of albums. Also Yaima, Yaima. She's one of my absolute favorites. So, but whatever maybe it's smooth jazz, you know, maybe it's like cool R&B, whatever really you like. Make a playlist and have it going so that you don't have to think about it. It's just going. And anything else for the space? And warmth. You're going to want to make sure that space is nice and warm. This is a little tidbit not everybody knows, but when a man or woman's feet are cold, it is so hard to remain turned on. Your consciousness is going to keep going back to the fact that your feet are cold, and it's going to take your awareness away from all the juicy, yummy stuff that might be happening, and you're just going to be like, well, feet. So, having a blanket that can just wrap around your feet, and maybe having a space heater going or something to make sure the space is really nice and warm. Really important.
So you've just painted to us a beautiful, luxurious experience, and it's so sensual and arousing to all of the senses. So say that two people are in this kind of environment and are starting to explore, and maybe someone has something to say, but they're not sure how to communicate without breaking the mood or something like that. Do you have any suggestions for how to incorporate communication in a way that's sexy and effective?
Yeah, that's such a good question. There's no easy answer to that. Everyone's going to have their own preferences around how they prefer to be communicated with. Some people really don't want to have feedback in the moment. And so in that case, it can be helpful to make little mental notes, I would have liked just this a little differently, and see if you can keep that note in your mind, take a little mental snapshot. And then what can be really helpful is to set up what I call the teaching container. So have a time once a week, maybe with your partner, where you can check in about just the relationship as a whole. I mean, I've actually done that with a partner before. We had a 1 day a week day to just drop in and say, like, how are we doing? Is there anything we want to change? Everything's great? Okay.
That sounds very healthy.
Yeah, but creating that teaching container can be so helpful, because both parties are coming with the understanding of what's going to happen and the agreement and the openness to receive feedback. And that can just be really, really awesome. So that's one method. The other method is, in the moment, speaking up what you want. And, there's really no, switch of the flick of the switch that you can be like, okay, now I'm okay talking in the bedroom. So what I have practiced doing, what I've advised other people to do, is to literally practice into the mirror. Here we go back again with mirror work. Is to tell the mirror, I want this, or here, this is also important. A compliment sandwich does the trick every time. Oh, baby, what you're doing feels so amazing. Can you also do this? First acknowledge that what your partner is doing is, hopefully still feeling very good, and then also just nudging them into one direction or another can kind of soften the feedback a little bit. So yeah, those are some notes.
All right. Well, you talked a little bit about this, creating this tantric container. I'm wondering, in your role as a coach, when you're working with people, what position do you have with them? Is there another kind of space that you would create? Or how does that work?
No, mostly I'm advising people in between sessions. So I'm not there
with
them in the session.
No.
I have taught tantric partner massage, but when it comes to the actual, full-on play session, I want people to have the privacy to fully express themselves and not be watched upon.
So it's mainly the giving of information and sorting through potential issues and stuff, and then leaving them to go off and play.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So in addition to coaching, would you recommend that people look at other resources to get into Tantra? And also, what resources do you find inspiring in your life and journey?
Yeah, I've got a couple books here that I brought. One of the books that I've been playing with, this one's a really great, just overall broad strokes introduction into what is tantric sex. So it might be backwards for you, but it's called Tantric Sex, Making Love Last by Cassandra Lorius, Lorius, Cassandra Lorius. And I really enjoyed this book because it was just kind of for the layman. It was for somebody who had really never explored much into Tantra, and it just gives a very, very good introduction to what it is. Classic.
So you have some bookmarks here.
Yeah, I was going to give you one of the classic poses. This is called Yabyum. You can see it okay. I don't know if it's going to focus on it. So in Yabyum, the male is sitting cross-legged and the woman is sitting over him. And it's representing the union of Shakti and Shiva. Shakti and Shiva are gosh, I don't even know if I want to get fully into that, but Google that, kids. It's basically the two divine poles, the divine masculine and divine feminine is an easy way of saying that. There's so much more.
With the Shiva being the masculine,
yes,
and Shakti being the feminine.
Exactly, you nailed it. Yeah.
And there's also a lot of exercises you can do in this position.
Yeah,
well.
Yeah, there's you can do like eye gazing. You can do a breath work exercise where one partner breathes in as the other breathes out, and you cycle this energy. Kind of actually showing it actually on this page. You can see the energy cycling between the two partners. I hope that this is focusing okay. And so there's that. You can do this really yummy breath work in that pose, and the eye gazing, even just arriving, even just saying like, oh, hi, like, hello, I'm so happy that you're here, you know, I'm so grateful for you. You know, it's just a really sweet space to arrive with your partner. So there's that book.
And we can include a link below in the description box as well with all of these books in case you want to check them out.
Yeah. Now this one is like the Bible of what people are calling Neo-Tantra. This is called The Art of Sexual Ecstasy. Margot Anand is just an incredible teacher. She created, oh my gosh, just like a lineage. There's literally a lineage behind this woman, or I should say in front of this woman. And this book is actually an entire course. So this is a pretty deep dive, but it's just gold. Like if you have any interest in really, you know, taking this farther, especially after you get like a little introduction and you're like, ooh, I like this, I want to go farther. The Art of Sexual Ecstasy is just incredible. I'm so loving this book and all of the exercises and information that's inside of it. So one thing I wanted to share from this book is what she calls Discovering the Inner Flute. I don't know if you guys can see that okay. That's focusing. The inner flute is a channel of energy that is running up your spine from your pelvic floor all the way to the crown of your head. And there's just a whole bunch of different ancient spiritual writings and technologies, is what I like to call them, that incorporate the use or the awakening of this inner flute. Different people call it different things. You know, some people call it the Sushumna in the yogic tradition. It's called the Sushumna. Gosh, I can't even remember. There's just a bunch of different words for this channel, this coursing line of energy. So, yeah.
And when people talk about Kundalini and Kundalini rising, is that speaking to the same?
The same exact thing, exactly. It's really, really beautiful. We're going to, at the very end of this interview, do a little exercise where we're going to start cultivating some awareness of how to send energy through your inner flute. Yes, was that. And then this is my recent absolute favorite. I cannot recommend highly enough getting this book. It's called the Magdalene Manuscript. Mary Magdalene was Jesus's lover. She was called a prostitute because the demonizing of the feminine, you know, actually the Pope and the Catholic Church came out and publicly announced, okay, like maybe about 20, 30 years ago, okay, no, Mary Magdalene wasn't a prostitute. We were lying. I don't know. I'm not sure what they said, but they actually came out and apologized for that. So Mary Magdalene was a disciple within a ISIS sex magic, sex cult kind of, I don't know, like a temple of sex magic underneath the goddess Isis. And she and Jesus together cultivated their energy body, what she calls the Ka body. And that practice allowed and enabled Jesus to do the works that he did. And so what this book is, it's a channeled work from Tom Kenyon. He's a very well-known channeling artist. And he writes her story. He helps her write her story and share it with the world. And she is sharing with us, with the people of today, ancient Egyptian technologies. Again, I like using that word technologies. I know it's very, very different use of the word, but it feels like technology. It feels like honestly like a tool. Technology is a tool,
Yeah,
and it's like a tool. So she's sharing with us this ancient Egyptian tool of awakening your energy body, of really truly arriving in your power. And she's doing this right now, she says in this book, because we're at the end of days. We're at a very, very crucial moment in the arc of human history where we need to arrive in our power. It is absolutely necessary for us to awaken into an understanding of the fact that we can create whatever it is we want. We're not victims in this story. We are active manifestors, and we're manifesting unconsciously currently. But the more that you can understand your energy body, the more you can consciously manifest and consciously create the world that you want. And so, and I mean, just coming back to Tantra, it makes sex better. It's amazing. These energy practices work. I have barely begun my study of these energy practices, and I can tell you right off the bat, right in the very beginning, I've noticed that they've made sex even more pleasurable. So if you want to take a pretty deep dive off the deep end, I would say, the Magdalen Manuscript, it's an incredible, incredible book.
Well, I just want to pause for a second and say that sounds like a very powerful practice, but it may be hard for some people to swallow the idea that Jesus, who's the Son of God, was having physical relations with Mary Magdalene, and this somehow was the source of his power and all of the miracles that he was able to perform, because she's not really talked about in the Bible and everything like that. So I wonder if you can talk maybe about whether the book addresses this controversy and why that happened.
It does.
Just briefly, and also what you mean when you say, because people may not be familiar with the word channeling, what you say when the author channeled this.
Yeah. So by channeling, I mean that he, the author, put himself into a state of self-induced hypnosis, and with the help of his partner, who was writing what he was saying, he called out to Mary Magdalene. Basically, he just called to her and said, "Mary Magdalene, I wish to speak with you." And the spirit of Mary Magdalene spoke through him. So when he opened his mouth and started speaking, it was her words. And both him and his partner, he's a very advanced medium. They call this, being a medium. So he's more familiar with these spaces. But his partner was a newer partner, and she commented that it was such a different voice that came through. It was a different way of speaking. The cadence was different. The words that were chosen were different. And they even talked about, like, there was this electric feel in the room. There was a certain energy that was present that wasn't present when they weren't in these channeling sessions. So that's what it means to channel. And then she does talk about, she's like, what you are sharing is not going to be a popular opinion. It's not going to be popular for people to read. There will be backlash. And she's like, and I don't care. This needs to be shared. This story needs to be shared, especially now. Especially now, this story needs to be shared. And so I really hope I haven't offended anybody by talking about this. In the end, you can also just take it as a very interesting source of information on how do you cultivate your energy body.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would like to get back to a little bit more about the work that you're doing. So you've talked to me about the Pleasure Revolution, the new podcast that you're in the process of creating. I'm wondering, what does pleasure mean to you?
Oh gosh, yeah. So also a little bit about my story as well, going back farther than this recent partner. In college, I was very disconnected to my sexuality, or I should say I was expressing my sexuality very unhealthily. And it was leading to a bunch of different problems. I was seeking therapy, which wasn't really helping. And I started spiraling into a pretty bad depression. And around that time, I did an art project for an art class, believe it or not. I can't believe that that's what brought this into my life, but that's what happened. I was doing an art project, and it was a life in art, so it was a presentational art project, where in the project, my hand and my vagina just didn't understand each other. And it was a puppet show, actually. I made a little sock puppet vagina. It was so cute. It was a vagina.
I see. I was like, what are we talking about?
It's like
here?
a sock puppet with a vagina just like on it. Anyways, and in the little mini puppet show, the vagina and my hand just didn't get along. They didn't understand one another. Mm-hmm. And the confession, the project was confessions. The confession was, I didn't masturbate. At that point in my life, I was 20 years old, or 19 years old, and I didn't know how to masturbate. I tried, nothing worked. And I'd never purchased a vibrator. Well, for this art project, I realized I had to go purchase a vibrator. So I did. I went and bought myself a vibrator, and in the puppet show, the hand is like, oh, I know what to do, and it like goes off scene, and it comes back with a vibrator, and the vibrator and the vagina dance together. It was so silly, but I got an A. Who knows? I don't know. But anyway, so what happened was that brought into my life this sex toy that enabled me to tap into my pleasure and satisfy my sexual needs on my own. Oh my gosh, like that in conjunction with discovering circus arts radically changed my life. I arrived in this space of confidence and self-assuredness and a freedom of expression, a freedom of being, where I just allowed myself to be myself. And I started producing events for the first time right around then, which became such an incredible source of joy for me, was producing these like community circus events. And I really concretely felt how pleasure turned me on, and not in the sense of like getting turned on sexually, like like an on switch, like a robot coming to life, turned me on. Brought me in touch with my own agency, my own power. And over the years, the more that I've expanded my explorations into pleasure and pleasure seeking, I've understood how I have the power to manifest what I want. I now do a practice that I call Chakra Sex Magic, where I pair my orgasm with a manifestation ask, and magical things happen. It's incredible. So I see pleasure as a tool for personal transformation. I see pleasure as a tool to deepen one's connection to yourself and to a partner. And I see pleasure as a potential vehicle towards magnetizing your desires to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Oh, and the reason why I love the term the pleasure revolution, and why I've coined that for my podcast, is I feel like, be the change, right? How can we create a better world if we don't love ourselves? It starts here. The change starts here. And what better way to love yourself and to give yourself pleasure? And that was the other awesome thing that what happened after I started really arriving in this space of self-love through pleasure, is that spilled over into other acts of self-love, into arriving into a yoga practice. I became a certified yoga teacher after that. I arrived into eating better. I started eating more healthily, cooking more, really selecting, organic foods and clean meat, because I had cared for myself, That decision to love myself then also rippled out, and I attracted better partners. So, so I see the pleasure revolution as something that has happening inside us ourselves, and something that ripples outward and can help make the world a better place.
What I really appreciate is that you've discovered this pleasure in yourself, and now you're sharing it with other people in terms of this podcast, through your work as a coach, and also through this new workshop series that is starting this Sunday, December 6th at 6 p.m.
Yep.
So can you tell us about this workshop series that you've titled the Sexy Sunday Soiree?
The Sexy Sunday Soiree is a 4-part workshop series. It's completely free. It is happening each Sunday at 6 p.m. over Zoom. We'll put a link in the comments, in the description as well. Or you can go onto Facebook and type in Sexy Sunday Soiree, and it should pop up. So it's a 4-part series that is dedicated to 4 different topics, some of which we talked about just now. One is the Anatomy of Arousal, which is really, we're just going into the nuts and bolts of like what feels good, where you can start your explorations if you haven't done a whole lot of exploring on your own body. For men and women. Also, this workshop series is open to couples and singles and anything in between. If you're just messing around, that's fine too. It's open to everybody, basically, and men and women. So Anatomy of Arousal is our first week. Then we have Autonomy in the Bedroom. That's all about communication in the bedroom, how to have compassionate and clear communication in the bedroom and beyond. And then we have Esoteric Energetics. And that one is about that inner flute that we talked about, and other energy and breathwork practices that we can use to enhance pleasure and increase stamina. And then the last week is Chakra Sex Magic. And in that I'll be talking about, you know, what is sex magic, and the chakra, what are the chakras, what's the chakra system, and how we can play in that energy space in self-pleasuring and with a partner, and pair our orgasms with juicy asks.
Awesome. So for those of our viewers that can't wait for Sunday to get a little taste of what's coming, would you share an exercise with us that we can do now?
Yes, I would be delighted to. So we're gonna just.
So I will be your model. I'll just do it with you.
We're gonna do it together. We're gonna do it together.
Awesome.
Don't worry. So if you're listening, we are sitting straight up, nice straight spine. Our sits bones, the little bones in our pelvis, are rooting down into our cushion, and we're gonna just close our eyes and just find an even breath. Just arrive and relax. So now we're going to bring our awareness to our pelvic floor. And if you're having a hard time really feeling where that is in your body, pretend like you have to stop peeing. Like you're going to be like, ooh, I got to stop peeing. And you're going to feel that little clench happen at the bottom of your body. That's your PC muscle. That's your pelvic floor muscle. Give that little muscle a couple clenches. And that's just where you're going to have your focus right now for about 10 breaths. Just inhaling, focusing on the pelvic floor, and exhaling, focusing on the pelvic floor. If you want, you can continue contracting and relaxing that muscle at the pelvic floor. And as you do so, you might start to feel a little warmth, a little buzzing, tingling, a little bit of turn on happening there in your pelvic bowl, in your sacral chakra, in your root chakra. The swirling of energy happening there. And now we're going to inhale again into our pelvic floor. But this time on the exhale, we're going to focus on a line between our pelvic floor and our crown. We're going to focus on that central channel. Inhale, pelvic floor. Exhale, just imagine that line within your central channel. And as you do this, you might start to feel that energy just gently bubble up through that central channel, like water bubbling up out of a fountain. Inhale, pelvic floor. Exhale, central channel. And you might even start to feel that energy rise all the way into your cranium, into your brain. As it rises into the brain, you can feel it swirl in the head and then fall back down for the next inhale into the pelvic floor. So for the next 3 breaths, just see if you can imagine that cycle of energy from the pelvic floor Exhaling it up through the central channel, into the head. Maybe you can feel it buzz at the third eye a little bit, and then back down to the pelvic floor. One more breath like that. Gently just come back to your whole body. Maybe wiggle your fingers and toes, and then flutter your eyes open. And like that, you've done the Alchemy of Horus. Right out of the Magdalen manuscript.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel very relaxed now.
Yeah.
I can't stop smiling and see my face. That was great.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's what we have for you today. Thank you, Farron, so much for joining us on the show. I'm Anika Kulander, your host for this episode. And if you have suggestions for future episodes, for future topics, please let us know. You can write us in our chat boxes on our website at www.togethernessmedia.com, or do the same after you download our app, or slide into my DMs at Togetherness Media. All right, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.